All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about a terrifying monster, a really grim paradox, and the ancient, almost unknowable power that started the whole thing. So, use a monster to ward off a wolf. This single line from an ancient parable, it's really the key to our whole story. It's the key to understanding the desperate, maybe even brilliant logic behind one of the most fearsome figures in all of mythology. Okay, so let's get right into it and meet the monster himself, Pazuzu. Now, that's a name you've probably heard, maybe from a movie or two, but I'm betting you don't know the real story behind him.
Just look at this thing. Pazuzu's form is what scholars call a composite monstrum, basically a mashup of all the most feared creatures of the time. We're talking a snarling face, scaly body, giant wings, talons, the whole shebang. He isn't just a monster, he is literally an amalgamation of terror, designed from the ground up to invoke absolute, paralyzing dread.
And what was his deal? Well, his purpose seemed pretty straightforward and terrifying. He was the scorching southwest wind. And you have to understand, in ancient Mesopotamia, this wasn't just some bad weather. This was a force of nature that brought famine, that brought sickness. It was a literal threat to your survival. Okay, so that brings us to the big question, right? If this guy is the bringer of famine and plague, this walking, talking disaster, why on earth would anyone use his image for protection? It makes no sense. Well, that's the paradox we're about to unpack. The answer, it turns out, is that there was something even worse out there, a more focused, more malicious threat, a demoness named Lamashtu. See, Pazuzu was like a hurricane, destructive but impersonal. Lamashtu, on the other hand, was pure, targeted evil. She preyed on pregnant women and newborns, literally stealing the breath from babies. So what do? The solution they came up with was incredibly pragmatic, if a little grim. They decided to use the greater monster, Pazuzu, to scare away the lesser but more personally malicious one, Lamashtu. It's like fighting fire with a bigger, scarier fire, a strategy of out-terrorizing the terror. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you have a highly venomous snake in a cage near your pantry. Now, you don't love this snake, right? You're very aware it could kill you. But it keeps the rats away from your food. You're not celebrating the snake. You're just pragmatically using its terrifying nature to solve a different problem. You're harnessing the danger. But this whole strategy only works if Pazuzu is the biggest, baddest monster on the block, right? He has to be the apex predator of the supernatural world. So that begs the question, where did he get all that juice? What is the source of his incredible, terrifying authority? Well, to find the answer, we have to look at his family tree. Because all of Pazuzu's power, it traces back to his father, an entity far more mysterious, far more ancient, and frankly, far more unsettling. An entity known only as Hanbi. So this is Hanbi, and let's be clear here. If Pazuzu is the loud, shrieking storm you can actually see and fear, then Hanbi is the vast, silent, completely indifferent cosmic chaos that spawned that storm in the first place. He exists way out beyond the comforting light of any benevolent gods. He's a reality so ancient, we know almost nothing about him. He's not a monster, he's more like the whisper in the dust, the source code for uncontrollable chaos itself. And get this, Pazuzu wasn't an only child. His whole lineage, which springs from Hanbi, the so-called king of the evil wind demons, includes other heavy hitters. You've got his brother, Humbaba, the terrifying guardian from the Epic of Gilgamesh. So we're not just talking about one family of monsters. This is a dynasty of primal, elemental forces you absolutely have to reckon with. So what's the point of all this? Well, this whole lineage, from the vast, unknowable chaos of Hanbi all the way down to the focused terror of Pazuzu, it completely forces us to rethink how we look at things like power, morality, and even what it takes to survive. See, the people who used Pazuzu's image weren't thinking in our modern terms of good versus evil. To them, these forces, Hanbi, Pazuzu, they weren't evil, they were just there. They were fundamental parts of the universe, like gravity or fire. You didn't judge them, you just had to understand them, respect them, and if you were clever, maybe even find a way to manipulate them to survive. And that's the real lesson here, isn't it? That sometimes the most effective defense isn't some benevolent hero in shining armor. According to this ancient way of thinking, it's a shadow big enough to stare down another shadow. It's about having the courage to harness a destructive force because sometimes that's the only language the darkness understands. Which leaves us with one last pretty provocative question. A question that started in the ancient Mesopotamian desert but it feels incredibly relevant today. What happens when our greatest shield is also our greatest threat? What do you do when the very thing that protects you also holds the power to completely destroy you?